Alrighty, welcome to Total Ponage. I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to be the realest person you will get to see on these YouTube builds, because most people, they're either sponsored by this company or, they'll tell you that this is the best and you need to buy it, and that's not always true. So right now I have a $540 bills, the thumbnail's inaccurate, and I really don't want to make it. It's like $6 or $4 more than what I put as the thumbnail, with a couple cents. So yeah, just to get that out of the note, but this should be the best PC build that you can buy for $540. Once again, prices do vary, so if it does change, well, don't come crying to me, please do your research, or rather, if you can get anything cheaper from different websites, I would go with that. Alright, so first off, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 5600G. It's a 6-core processor, 12 threads. Now, what's different about this guy compared to a regular, let's say it's AMD Ryzen 5, let's say the 5600 without the G. Okay, so G basically means it has integrated graphics, or rather, it's got its own dedicated graphics that are better than the integrated graphics. I don't know how that makes sense. Basically, they're like integrated graphics where you don't have a GPU, but it's a billion times better. So let's say hypothetically you couldn't find this XFX GTR XXX Radeon RX 580 8GB video card for $150. Okay, let's say you couldn't find it. Okay, so therefore you could still play video games with the Ryzen 5 5600G alone. You do not need a dedicated graphics card. This processor is probably equivalent to the AMD Ryzen 5 5600X, almost equivalent. I'll give it like minus 10%, because it is not a CPU alone, it's a CPU plus a GPU. Okay, so we have that. Now, once again, I don't think you should buy expensive motherboards. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, this is $85, it's like $100, and it's probably the cheapest. However, I do recommend, if you can find a motherboard that it has an M.2 or an NVMe, an M.2 NVMe slot. So as you can see, we have this guy right here. It's a 1TB NVMe SSD. Make sure the motherboard has that specific slot, because you could always buy for cheaper probably a SATA drive, the square ones that attach with a SATA cable to the motherboard. So if you can't find this one for $53 and you find one that's on sale and it's a SATA, I would go with the SATA, which is basically that cube. It's like almost equivalent to a hard drive, like a 2.5 hard drive, except for it isn't a hard drive, it's an SSD. Okay, so I would buy that instead of going with this one, but I would still buy the motherboard just to future-proof the future build, as putting an NVMe SSD is faster than a SATA drive or an SSD. So you would always have future-proof. You would have a future-proof PC build, and since you have an AM4, you could always put the new Ryzen. I can't even remember. I think they came out with like 7950X or an AMD Ryzen 5700X, 5700G, like the newer stuff. And I don't believe you really need to overclock those PC builds, or rather those processors, because there's really no need to. I think the performance alone is plenty enough, and all anybody should ever care about is above 60 FPS if they come from a console. Now, the consoles are good, way better than they used to be, but they can't video edit. They can't, FL Studio, they can't do virtual production. With this guy, you can at least do it to a certain extent. Now, I wouldn't say like rendering like 8K textures on a 3D model, like they won't do that, but, and I know like the PS5 and like the Xbox are like 8K 120 hertz. Yeah, we don't have 8K TVs yet, and I doubt anybody's gonna have the money to buy an 8K TV. Like, even if you have a 4K TV, that's perfectly fine, but I doubt most people have it. Most people play 1080p anyway, so as long as you're getting 60 FPS or more, which this PC build does, you should be set. And if you buy a 120 hertz monitor, you should be set. Once again, it's a 1TB M.2 NVMe SSD, which is really fast. I believe, I can't tell you how fast it is, but it is faster than a hard drive by a million, and it's a faster, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 times than a regular SATA, or rather SSD, storage. I can't even think. Just faster than SSD, and it's future proof. So if you buy an SSD over this NVMe, well, you already have it future proof. Now I'm going to go with the RX 580, which is equivalent to a 1616 Super, which is, I think, faster or equivalent to my 1660 Ti. I have a 1660 Ti. It runs perfect. I even have a lower CPU than what's advertised on this video, and it's great. I think the 1660 Ti is perfect. So if this, and it gives you double the RAM, so I would go for that one. Okay. Now the case, once again, it's preferably up to you. You can buy whatever cheap, but if we're gonna go cheap, it's even got tempered glass. If I hover over it, which it should, we'll just click on it. It won't kill me. It's got tempered glass. What more do you want? And I'm pretty sure it has slots for fans up in the front if you want to squeeze a little bit more money just to have it airflow, or do what I do and just take the side panel off. You know, like, that's killing your airflow. No, it really isn't, because if you have no airflow because you have no fans in the front, take the side panel off. Once again, if you can buy anything cheaper on any other website, I would do it. Once again, the thermal take 500 watt. I even have a 400 watt power supply in my personal build. It's got a, what is it got? I think it's got a Ryzen 3 3100, I think, 4-core 8 threads, and a 1660 Ti with a 400 watt power supply. Let me make sure. Yeah, so you should be set there, okay? So this is the part where I'd be like, oh, I didn't even talk about the RAM. 2666 megahertz. Now this is the part where I will show you to go to this website called newegg.com. You click enter. Go. Type in here 16 gigabytes DDR4 3200. Once it decides to load, oh, okay, DDR4 3200, and you click enter, right? Then you click here and you go lowest price, okay? And then you go lowest price. I don't understand why I didn't do that. And bam, would you look at that? Would you look at that? What do we got here? Right? You can even get the one stick for 40 bucks. I think it's what, $2? Where is it? 36? It's like, yeah, $2 more. And it's 3200 megahertz. Or you can get the two sticks, since I believe the motherboard has 4 slots. So, you know, you could buy this if you wanted to. I'm just saying, there's always on the more websites. I just decided to put that one because it was, you know, cheap. But I would go with this one. 35 bucks, 2 sticks. You could get like 32 gigabytes of memory for 70 bucks. More than perfect. Once again, everything that I say here is subjective. So I would go with the 500 watt or 550 watt power supply. If you can find it on eBay or any other website that is OPENBOX or new at a cheaper price, I would do that. Same with the case. You can buy one off of eBay. It doesn't really have to be, you know, it doesn't have to look good or anything. As long as you can afford fans to put in the front, or if you want to take the side panels off. Once again, the RX 580 8GB graphics card is equivalent to a 1660 Super, and that's more than plenty enough because I run that. And anyways, for 150 bucks, I think it was equivalent to my 1660 Super when I bought it off of eBay, and I had an auction for it. Anyways, you get double the video memory, and you should be fine. Again, so once again, if you can afford this M.2 NVMe SSD, buy it. If you don't, buy a 1TB SSD, and the motherboard's already future-proof. Once again, go to Newegg to find that 16 gigabytes of crucial memory. I have the exact same stick on my motherboard. It works perfectly fine. Once again, now you'll say, compatibility issues. Don't worry, it's just the motherboard. It just needs an update. Once again, if you can find an AMD Ryzen 5 5600G, and if you don't have enough money for the graphics card, you're more than set to go because it doesn't need a graphic card to play video games. And with that being said, I will show you down here. It says the Gigabyte A520M, blah, blah, blah. A support set just needs a BIOS update version to F103. And since most people have PCs, you can do it without a CPU. I know you can do that. There's YouTube videos on that. And if you already have an old CPU and you're just upgrading to this one because you thought this PC build was better, and hypothetically you're buying a new motherboard because the old one is just like completely garbage or something, and it doesn't have an NVMe SSD slot, you can always just update the BIOS. With that being said, it's 540 bucks. I think this is perfect for anybody who wants to start into PC gaming. With that being said, I guess I'll see you on the next one. If you have any questions or comments, please try to put in the comments below. I guess I'll see you on the next one. Bye.